Okay, picture this. A world long before recorded history. A world where a highly advanced civilization might have actually mapped the Earth, studied the stars, and built massive, mind-blowing monuments way before the pyramids of Egypt even existed. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into one of archaeology's absolute most heavily debated mysteries, the theory of a lost advanced Ice Age civilization. We're going to unpack the source material, look at some totally undeniable anomalies, and explore the fascinating clues that have researchers and historians completely locked in a profound debate about the true origins of, well, us. So, did a forgotten world actually exist before recorded history? It's a totally mind-bending question, right? What if a highly advanced society mapped the stars and the Earth only to just vanish almost overnight? If that's true, it completely flips the script on the timeline we all learned back in grade school. We're looking at a theory that suggests a whole forgotten world existed way before the very first chapters of our history books were even thought of. And what's really wild is how this hypothesis asks us to take these scattered physical clues from all over the globe and look at them in a completely new light. An advanced civilization wiped out 12,800 years ago. That's the crucial starting point here, the timeline. I mean, try to imagine this incredible, forgotten world predating the oldest known human civilizations, just completely erased by some massive, catastrophic event roughly 12,800 years back. Just to put that into perspective for a second, we're talking about a time when woolly mammoths were literally still roaming the Earth. According to this theory, whatever society was here was wiped out so thoroughly that only fragments, whispers, and echoes survived into our era. To really wrap our heads around this mystery, we've got to follow a trail of breadcrumbs spanning centuries and continents. And that trail starts in the year 1513. We begin following those breadcrumbs with what a lot of people consider a practically impossible anomaly. An Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis created a map that was just unlike anything else from that era. It showed parts of Europe, Africa, and South America with a level of accuracy that is honestly staggering for the 16th century. But how? How on earth did a 16th century admiral have that kind of precise geographical knowledge? Well, in his own notes, Piri Reis explicitly wrote that he didn't survey the land himself. Instead, he compiled his work from much older, ancient source maps. But it wasn't Europe or Africa that really caught the eye of modern researchers. It was what was drawn right near the bottom edge. Looking at the bottom of the map, there's this distinct landmass sitting right at the center of an intense divide. On the left side, you have the alternative view, which argues this depicts an ice-free Antarctica, copied from ancient source maps. This implies those original maps came from a highly advanced ancient civilization. But on the right side, the skeptic view counters that heavily. Mainstream historians argue it's simply an inaccurate and poorly drawn representation of the South American coastline, just kind of bending along the bottom of the parchment. So, the debate over this single piece of historical mapping, it remains entirely unresolved. Which begs the question, could Antarctica have been mapped without ice? The core issue with the Piri Reis map brings up a massive historical hurdle. You see, Antarctica was officially discovered in 1820. That is more than 300 years after this map was even drawn. Plus, alternative theorists point out that the map appears to show the Queen Maud Land coastline completely free of ice, which is a geographical reality we only actually confirmed with modern seismic testing back in the 1950s. Since scientists estimate Antarctica has been covered by kilometers of thick ice for literally millions of years, how could a 16th century map feature its hidden coastline at all? It would require geographical knowledge from thousands and thousands of years ago. So what could possibly erase a global civilization? If an advanced society actually existed, and if they really possessed the navigational tech to map an ice-free world, what kind of terrifying force could have completely wiped them from the historical record? Because let's be real, we aren't just talking about the slow decline of a civilization here. To erase a global society so violently that absolutely no written records or service cities survived, to the point where they're basically just ghosts in the archaeological dirt, that requires an event of just unimaginable devastation. This brings us directly to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This is a theory suggesting comet fragments struck Earth roughly 12,800 years ago, triggering massive floods, fires, and global destruction. To understand that timeline we mentioned earlier, we have to travel back to the end of the last ice age. Earth experienced sudden, super dramatic climate changes. Global temperatures plunged drastically in a matter of mere decades. Proponents of this hypothesis point to physical evidence, like this thin layer of nanodiamonds and ash found globally in the soil from this exact period. If an advanced civilization was alive right then, well, this is the apocalyptic event that erased them. Fascinatingly enough, this hypothesis correlates with an incredible global phenomenon. Cultures all over the world have great flood legends. We're talking Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, the Americas. Nearly every ancient culture on Earth preserves stories of a great world-ending flood. Think about the biblical flood of Noah, or the Epic of Gilgamesh, or the story of Manu from Hindu tradition. From completely distinct, isolated civilizations, we hear the exact same story: devastating, rising waters that totally destroyed the old world before a new age began. It's a geographical spread of a single catastrophic narrative that is, honestly, incredibly hard to ignore. Memories transformed into global legends. Supporters of the lost civilization theory argued that these aren't just mere myths or coincidental stories invented around ancient campfires. Nope, they believe that traumatized survivors of the Younger Dryas impact passed down their knowledge to future generations. And over centuries and millennia, those terrifying, very real memories of a broken world and rising oceans transformed into the cautionary global legends and myths we're so familiar with today. They were essentially refugees, turning their literal nightmare into a warning. So, are ancient monuments trying to tell us something? The clues aren't just hidden in ancient myths and old maps. They might actually be encoded in the very stones of some of humanity's greatest monuments. Think about it. If you survived a global reset and you wanted to leave a lasting message or preserve profound knowledge for the distant future, you definitely wouldn't write it on paper that could just burn or rot away, right? You would build it into something permanent, something massive. Rising right out of the desert, we see the Great Pyramid's anomalies perfectly illustrating this idea. We're looking at extraordinary size and precision, complex mathematical patterns, and highly specific astronomical alignments. For instance, the pyramid is aligned to true north with just fractions of a degree of error. That is a staggering feat of engineering. And check this out. If you take the perimeter of the base and divide it by twice its height, you literally get the mathematical value of pi with incredible accuracy. Some researchers suggest these features mean the pyramid was built specifically to serve as a message, showcasing an incredibly advanced understanding of mathematics and the Earth itself. But this stunning architectural precision absolutely isn't isolated to Egypt. There's this undeniable language of the stars seen across the world. The pyramids of Egypt, ancient temples in Central America, stone circles in Europe, they all appear deeply and specifically connected to astronomy. The shafts in the Great Pyramid align perfectly with Orion's belt. Massive stone circles in Europe, like Stonehenge, capture the summer solstice sunrise flawlessly. Ancient temples hidden deep in Central America track celestial movements with absolute precision. It's built directly into ancient stonework worldwide, separated by entire oceans but completely united in astronomical focus. So, inherited knowledge or careful observation? How did ancient, supposedly primitive people achieve such astonishing precision all across the globe? Did disconnected bands of hunter-gatherers all simultaneously just figure out complex astronomy, architecture, and mathematics completely on their own? Or did someone teach them? Traditional historians attribute this to generations upon generations of careful, independent observation of the night sky. But alternative researchers propose a much more radical answer. They suggest these totally diverse cultures actually inherited their knowledge from a shared, much older source. For more than 3 decades, researcher Graham Hancock has investigated these exact clues to form a unified theory. He argues that advanced Ice Age survivors traveled across the world after a global catastrophe, sharing knowledge of agriculture, architecture, astronomy, and navigation. Hancock's theory suggests that mainstream history is missing a massive, foundational chapter. He believes these survivors acted as ancient seed banks, basically restarting civilization worldwide by sharing their retained knowledge with primitive populations, and ultimately shaping the rapid rise of the historical civilizations that followed. Now, to really understand this fascinating debate impartially, we have to look at the deep divide in the field right now. On one side, alternative theorists see a forgotten global civilization that seeded modern societies. They see a lost chapter of human history. But on the completely opposite side, mainstream archaeologists rely on the hard, unforgiving dirt of documented archaeology. They maintain that ancient societies gradually developed over thousands of years. They point to the verified, step-by-step development of tools and agriculture, arguing that human progress just doesn't need a lost super civilization to explain it. It is absolutely vital to note that the mainstream archaeological consensus firmly rejects Hancock's conclusions. Their stance is rooted in a really fundamental principle of science. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. They point out that we don't just lose entire civilizations without leaving a single trace. Societies leave behind trash, distinct tools, pottery shards, and undeniable genetic footprints. And at present, none of these concrete, physical markers have actually been found for the supposed advanced Ice Age society, which keeps the scientific consensus strictly tied to what can physically be dug up out of the ground. So, we find ourselves left at a truly fascinating crossroads. Are we dealing with misunderstood clues or a hidden chapter of history? Are we looking at genuine echoes of a sunken era? Did ancient explorers truly map the ice-free coast of Antarctica before recorded history, only to be totally wiped out by a cataclysmic comet strike? Or are these lingering mysteries simply the result of human curiosity kind of misinterpreting ancient anomalies, seeing complex patterns where none actually exist? The debate continues to rage on, and it definitely challenges everything we think we know. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what we know, but how much we have yet to discover. Wherever you stand on the evidence we've explored in this explainer today, the sheer volume of unanswered questions leaves us with one powerful, lingering thought. Somewhere beneath our shifting deserts, vast oceans, and miles of deep ice, new discoveries are undoubtedly waiting to be unearthed. And it forces us to ask a pretty chilling question. If a civilization as advanced as ours could potentially be erased 12,000 years ago, what makes us think we're immune to the exact same fate?